Hi, I'm Don McCarthy, psychotherapist at My Therapy NYC. This video is titled The Change Triangle, A Practical Guide to Emotional Health. The Change Triangle is a tool developed by psychotherapist and author of the book It's Not Always Depression, Hilary Jacobs Handel. The Change Triangle is a map that helps us make sense of our emotions. It is a guide that can be used to track the shifts from a place of discomfort and distress to a place of calmness and clarity. And this video is intended to be an educational video describing the Change Triangle. The Change Triangle is a map that can be used to help us understand and move through our various emotional states. It's meant to be a guide to help us name and validate our emotions without judging them. So let's take a look at the Change Triangle. I'm going to start defining the parts of the triangle, and as you could see, the Change Triangle is an upside down triangle, and each corner represents an emotional state. And as Hilary explains it, the reason the triangle is an upside down triangle is that if you superimpose the triangle over your body, then the point of the triangle would be at the core of the body. The core is where our emotions live. And then if you go to the top left of the triangle, we have our defenses, and defenses are anything we do to avoid our emotions, and I'll go more into that shortly. And then moving in a clockwise motion, we get to the top right of the triangle. These are the inhibitory emotions. So these emotions are anxiety, guilt, shame. And these emotions block the core emotions, and I'll explain that more shortly. So continuing the clockwise motion, we move to the bottom of the triangle, and that's the core emotions. This is where our emotions live. They inform us about our environment, and they're not in our conscious control. So these emotions include sadness, fear, joy, excitement, sexual excitement, anger, and disgust. So finally, below the triangle is our open-hearted state, or our authentic selves. This is a place of calmness, clarity, confidence, compassion, curiosity, connection, and courage. Ultimately, it's where we want to end up when we use the triangle. So let's dive deeper into our defenses. Defenses are anything we do to avoid our core emotions. And there are many things we all do to avoid uncomfortable emotions. Some of us do things like overworking, picking a fight, using substances, overeating, undereating, tuning out, using sarcasm, overthinking, negative thinking, judging. There's a laundry list of things that we all do, but the triangle can be used to help us slow down and start naming, identifying in a non-judgmental way any of these behaviors that are pulling you away from feeling that core emotion. So let's go back to the top of the triangle, those inhibitory emotions. These are anxiety, guilt, and shame. So these emotions block the core emotions. So typically, they come into play for a few reasons. So when the sensations of a core emotion become so intense, our brain needs to block them from emotionally overwhelming us. And so lots of times in social relationships with partners, friends, peers, parents, our core emotions can sometimes come into conflict with what is pleasing, acceptable, or understandable to others. So for example, we human beings constantly need to know that we're loved and supported by a loved one, but if we get angry at something that they did, they may not understand our anger and potentially have a negative reaction to it. So therefore, that can create an anxiety within us, or shame or guilt. So if we continue clockwise, once we figure out if we're avoiding an emotion, if our brains are protecting us from an emotion, then we can get to the core emotion, which come from our own felt experiences in our body. And these happen automatically as a response to our environment, so we can't stop or think our way out of a feeling. So these emotions give us important signals that we need to pay attention to so we know how to respond accordingly. So something like joy, sadness, excitement, sexual excitement, fear, anger, disgust, these are the basic emotions. And each have their own energy, their own sensations in our body. So by identifying, validating, even experiencing these emotions, we get important information about how our environment affects us. And the more we listen to and the more we validate these emotions, the more we're able to acquire agency, the more we can identify our needs, and the healthier our physical and mental health will become. And then finally, that brings us to the authentic self, the open-hearted state. This is the state where you feel your best self. You feel most confident in being able to handle difficult situations and what life can sometimes unexpectedly throw at us. So it's important to remember that the goal of using the triangle is not feeling anything or not to get triggered by life events, but rather it's that you are confident and that you're able to say to yourself, this is who I am, and I am calm enough to manage and deal with what life brings me. When we use the triangle, we can move through the core emotions, validate them, experience them for what they are. And then as a result, we return to a state of calmness and balance. And then the more calmer we are, the more access we have to those authentic selves. And we can face the challenges of everyday life. So in conclusion, you can start using the triangle whenever you feel upset. So begin by determining where you are in the triangle, then decide where you want to go, clockwise, around, and down. Even just those 2 steps can help you gain some distance and perspective on what you're feeling, while having some direction on what to do to help yourself feel better. So feel free to share your thoughts, comments, or questions to this video in the space below. And for more information, check out our website at mytherapynyc.com. Thank you for watching.